In this video, we will show you how to replace your rear brake caliper on this Ford Ranger. This will be located behind your rear wheel. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. The first thing you need to do, safely raise and support the rear of the vehicle so the wheels are off the ground. Once you've done that, the next thing we'll do is continue on to removing your center cover. You can use a pry bar for that. We'll pop this out of place, give it a quick inspection, and we can set that aside. Continue on with removing all 5 of your 19mm lug nuts and then the wheel. Now that we have the wheel off, we have a clear view of the caliper. A couple common reasons to replace the caliper could be because it's seized, it could be because the bleeder screw broke. Either way, we're going to have to open up the system a little bit here so we can push back that caliper piston a little bit to be able to remove it. Commonly for this, you would want to open up the bleeder screw with an 8mm. Once that's open, make your way up into the passenger compartment and carefully press that brake pedal all the way down to the floor as far as possible and hold it there with something such as a pry bar. With it being held there, you would want to make your way back under here and continue on by removing your brake line from the caliper. Before we open this up, make sure you're wearing hand and eye protection. Also, have a collection bucket under this area so you can recycle the fluid properly. Since my bleeder screw is broken, I'm going to make my way right here to the banjo bolt. Use a 14mm. Loosen this up just enough that you can make your way up into that passenger compartment and press the pedal down while evacuating the fluid down through this area. Now, while we have that open, we're going to carefully push back our caliper piston. The piston itself is located in here, but you can gain access coming through this slot. While inside this area, you want to gently start pressing that piston back. It's going to force fluid out the backside. Make sure it's going into that collection receptacle. After you've done that, we can continue on to removing our flex hose from the area. You'll find that you have that 14mm banjo bolt. Go ahead and fully remove that, give it a close inspection, and set it aside. Now, something to pay attention to is there should be a crush washer on each side of the flex hose. It's common to either be stuck on the flex hose itself or on the banjo bolt. Either way, you need to make sure that it's off of the flex hose, assuming you are not replacing the flex hose. Looking at this one right here, I can see that I still have the gasket in place here. We'll have a quick look along the backside, and I do not see a gasket, but I do see a lot of buildup. We need to clean up this flex hose, but we'll do that in a minute. Set it aside. Now we'll use a 10mm and remove each one of our 2 caliper slider bolts. Before you remove it, you'll see along this upper one here, you do have a vibration dampener. Have a quick inspection, make sure it is still pliable and it's not broken in any way. Now when you go to remove this, you will find that it starts coming out, but it hits up against the leaf spring. That's okay. Go ahead and carefully flex it a little bit as you continue removing it. A quick inspection, you will be reusing these. With that dismounted, if you were to reach along the outboard side here along the bottom, you're going to find that you have a small tab. Go ahead and press on that tab to unlock this caliper. And after that, you can remove it from the vehicle. At this point, you want to be extremely careful because we do have the port along the backside which houses brake fluid. We don't want to get that on our skin. Aside from that, go ahead and remove the brake pad starting with the outer pad. We'll do this on the bench. To remove that outer pad, you'll find that you have 2 locking tabs. If you're reusing the pads, you definitely want to make sure you don't damage these locking tabs. Carefully take hold of the brake pad, pry it away from the ear of the caliper, and start sliding it up and away. If you have a hard time, you could use a small prying device. Just make your way underneath there and gently pry, being extremely careful not to damage it. Just roll this right out of there. At this point, you want to give the brake pads a close inspection. These are clearly brand new, but if yours were worn very low or at an angle and damaged in some way, it's a good idea to go ahead and replace them. After you remove the outer pad, continue on to removing the inner pad. For this one, you can tell it's almost already slid out of there, but it should be held in place with 3 locking tabs. There's those locking tabs. Double check to make sure they're not rotted in any way or weak. We don't want this pad sliding around on us. A quick inspection of the pad material here and we'll set it aside. And there it is, friend. Now, before we can install our brand new caliper, we need to prepare it first. You'll find that you have 2 slider pins with protective boots. Go ahead and carefully slide those pins out of place. You don't have to fully remove them. Once you have them out of place, continue on with some high temperature lubricant. We'll lubricate the shaft of each one of these slider pins and then the inside of the boots. When you're lubricating inside the boots, the area you want to pay attention to is along this metal area on the inside there. I'm trying to work my way right around here. That is where the slider pin will move. Otherwise, this is pretty much just a dust boot. Slide each one of these pins into place, making sure that it is in place along the grooves on each side of the slider pin. Let's work those into place. At this point, I'll push them outboard, and we'll continue on with our high temperature lubricant along the piston area here and along the backside of each of these 2 ears, directly up against where it touches up against the pad. We don't need much here. This will help with vibration dampening and noise reduction overall. At this point, let's continue on to installing our brake pads. When installing the brake pads, start with the inboard pad. We want to make sure that we have those 3 locking ears carefully sliding their way into the caliper piston, locking it in position. Listen for a click, give it a little wiggle to make sure it is secure. If your locking pins are damaged in some way and this can move around, you might find that you have a brake issue. Continue on with the outer pad here. We'll take that pad and slide it down into its locked position. If you are looking at the outboard side of the pad, you'll find that you have 2 tabs. On the caliper itself, you have little slots for those to fit into. Slide this down and into position. Make sure it's locked in. Let's have a close look along each of the 2 ears. After that, look at where the pad connects onto the piston. Let's get this in the vehicle. Let's install the caliper on the vehicle. When installing it, we want to make sure we bring that rotor and bring it right in between these pads without causing any damage. We're going to roll it in place starting with the top and then lock that in down along the bottom. With that in place, let's continue on with each of our 2 slider bolts. We'll start them into position, snug them up, torque those to 18 foot-pounds. Keep in mind, the upper slider bolt is the one with the vibration dampener. If you have a crow's foot, you could torque this as well. Otherwise, just continue with your 10mm wrench and make sure it's nice and tight. Now it's time to pay attention to our brake flex hose. As I said before, we have one side that I can clearly see does not have the gasket on there, but we do need to clean up all of this extra material on here. Aside from that, along the other side there, this is where you can see I still have the crush gasket on there. You never reuse these. You'll find the new caliper comes with a new set. Go ahead and set those aside for recycling. Once you've done so, the next thing you need to do is clean up each side of that brake flex hose so it's a smooth mounting surface. Once you have your flex hose cleaned up, continue on to connecting it to the back side of your caliper. If you still have your new banjo bolts on the caliper, remove that now. Now in with the caliper kit, you'll find that it came with 2 brand new crush gaskets here. We'll take one of those gaskets, slide it onto that banjo bolt. At this point, we'll take the banjo bolt and slide it through the flex hose. Should look just like this. Sandwich in that flex hose. At this point, we have a gasket on each side. Continue on to putting this in place on the back side of the caliper. Start it in by hand, snug it up, and torque that to 26 foot-pounds. Double check to make sure it's completely secured. Remove the bleeder screw cover from your bleeder screw. At this point, make your way back up into the passenger compartment. Release the pressure from that brake pedal and then make your way right back down here. Now it's time to start bleeding the system. To do that, we'll start with a gravity bleed. Make your way up to the master cylinder under your hood, open up that cap but leave it in place. Come back down here. At this point, we're going to use our 10mm. I have a little collection receptacle here. What we need to do is open up this bleeder screw. Wait until we see a steady trickle of fluid coming out. Once we've done that, we'll go ahead and close off this bleeder screw and continue on with a manual bleed. At this point, let's go ahead and close this off. Now for the manual bleed, it's easiest if you have a second person. We'll have that person inside of the passenger compartment. They're going to have to pump up that brake pedal till it's nice and firm, approximately 3 to 5 times. Once it feels like it's firm, they're going to hold that pedal and let me know. While they're holding it, I'm going to open up the bleeder screw and we'll watch for fluid and air making its way out of the caliper. We'll have to repeat this process several times until we're sure we see no air, but only a steady trickle of fluid coming out. Go ahead and pump up the brake pedal, please. All right. Well, the amount of times it might take to go ahead and bleed out the brakes may vary for you. At this point, I had 2 times that I didn't see any air coming out of the system. I feel confident that we've completely bled this caliper. Let's continue on by cleaning our mess. If you have one of those protective covers, go ahead and slide that on there. At this point, it's time to reinstall the wheel. Before you do, just do a quick overall inspection. Double check to make sure everything's tight and in place. Let's get the wheel on here. Start on all 5 of your 19mm lug nuts. Bottom them out, get the wheel safely back down on the ground, and we'll torque this to 100 foot-pounds. With the wheel safely back down on the ground, we'll torque these in a crisscross manner. Torqued. If you have a center cover, go ahead and install that now. Double check to make sure it's completely secure so it does not fall off on you while you're driving down the road. Okay friends, we've got our vehicle back together. The process for one side of the vehicle is the exact same thing as the other. Under the hood, we're looking for the master cylinder along the driver's side. Make sure that the area is clean. You don't want any debris making its way into this area. Carefully open up your master cylinder cap and give it a close inspection. Continue on by topping off your master cylinder with the manufacturer's specified fluid. Looking along the side, you have your maximum line. Here we are. Reinstall your cap, make sure it's nice and tight so no dirt or debris make its way inside your braking system. Okay friend, we showed you how to install your caliper on your vehicle. At this point, hop in the passenger compartment, pump up the brake pedal till it's nice and firm, and then you can take your vehicle for a road test. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.